Donald Trump just blew up trade talks with Canada. And it's not just talk, because he says within 7 days, he's going to have brand new tariffs for Canada. And we have zero idea what those are. All because Ottawa decided to tax American tech giants with a retroactive tax going back to 2022. $3 billion is due in 2 days. Why is Canada doing this? It's because we are broke. We're so broke, we don't even have a budget in Canada. After 10 years of Liberal government, we have had the worst inflation in Canadian history. We doubled our national deficit in such a short amount of time, more than all prime ministers in Canadian history. And at the same time, our GDP per capita hasn't grown since 2014. That's 11 years of lost economic growth. With all that spending, you would think our economy is on fire right now. Quite the contrary. So what does Canada do? We decide to impose a tax on American tech giants. Let's make it 3 years worth. Pay us back for 3 years worth of taxes. Because Canada is broke. Like I said, we need that money. But guess what? Donald Trump doesn't give a damn if we poorly managed our country for the last decade. He doesn't care. And he says no. Now Canada is staring down the barrel of a trade war. Let's get into the show. What is this digital sales tax? It's a 3% tax on companies like Meta, Google, Amazon, Uber, basically anyone making money off of Canadian users. And for foreign tech companies that are making over $20 million off of Canadians. Ottawa wants their slice, and it's retroactive. These US firms now owe Canada an estimated $3 billion going back to January 1st of 2022. Here's Donald Trump's response.
We have all the cards. We have every single one. We don't want to do anything bad, but they have, economically, we have such power over Canada. I'd rather not use it, but they did something with our tech companies today trying to copy Europe. You know, they copied Europe. It's not going to work out well for Europe either, and it's not going to work out well for Canada. They were foolish to do it. And so I said, we're going to stop all negotiations with Canada right now until they straighten out their act.
Donald Trump also added that this is a blatant attack on the United States. Negotiations are over and new tariffs coming in within a week. But this is not just a Democrat or Republican. Joe Biden and Donald Trump both on the same team when it comes to this digital tax. Joe Biden didn't do anything because Canada didn't impose anything. But now they are, and Donald Trump is in charge, and he's stepping in, and he's stepping in hard. There's something you probably didn't even know. The UK has the exact same tax, and Donald Trump is okay with the UK. But Canada? Oh no, he's not okay with Canada. He actually came out and said why. He said it's because Canada is a difficult country to deal with. Translation, it's because Ottawa burned the last bridge it had. What I don't understand is why Donald Trump wanted a liberal government to be elected. He said it multiple times before the election that he would rather Mark Carney and the Liberals to lead Canada. I really wonder if he's now regretting that decision, because without the elbows up, we would have a majority conservative government right now. And now we have an economic war, and Donald Trump is absolutely furious that Canada is now besties with Europe. I have a video of Kevin O'Leary, and it's straight up fire. Many people love Kevin O'Leary, many do not. But this clip is bang on.
You know, this policy actually was introduced by the previous administration in Canada, the idiot king, Justin Trudeau. It was bad policy then, and it's bad policy now. But Carney, the new prime minister, that Trudeau was thrown out after he impoverished 25% of the Canadian population, wiped out GDP, buried the country in debt because of one policy called Bill C-69, which doesn't allow development of any energy, anything at all. It's a no pipeline bill. So revenues collapsed in Canada during his 10-year reign. And now Carney has no income. There's no growth in income at all. So he's trying to find any way he can to make income. This is worth $7 billion to the Canadian economy. But obviously, it's not going to work out the way he planned. Now, he may be just testing it, but he doesn't have a lot of options because Canada's economy has been wiped out by the idiot king, and he's got to fix it. And so at the end of the day, this is just another aspect of the negotiation. But I will add one thing. The original vision of this, way back 7 months ago, was why don't we somehow combine these two economies, not sell the country, but Canada has all the raw resources, the unlimited nat gas, unlimited oil, unlimited rare earth, unlimited minerals, and the U.S. is the largest market. Yeah. So what are we, all idiots? Why do we have tariffs in either direction? There should be no tariffs whatsoever.
Exactly.
We should bulk up and then fight off the Chinese.
Wow, I have to agree with Kevin O'Leary here. Why are we fighting with the #1 economy in the world and we have everything they want and move our relationship to Europe, a collapsing society?
You know, my favorite thing that's happened out of Canada recently was when the No Kings protests spread to Canada, and then Canada remembered that they have a monarchy, so they had to change it to the No Tyrants holiday. But, you know, obviously the Trump administration, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent also has called out the new tax on digital services that Canada has levied, is going to levy on U.S. companies. Watch this.
Canada has this digital services tax, and several other countries do too. We disagree, and we think that they discriminate against U.S. companies. This was something from the Trudeau years, so we were hoping as a sign of goodwill that the new Carney administration would at least put a break on that during the trade talks. They seem not to have.
Yeah, see that, Canada? Because if you think you're going to re-elect a liberal government and you're going to get a different government just because of Mark Carney, you're electing the same people that destroyed everything.
Real quick, how does that end?
Well, Carney's pragmatic. There's no question about that. He obviously tested the waters with this. He got a very vicious reaction from Trump, and now he's probably thinking it through the weekend, deciding what to do next, because he definitely wants to get a trade deal done and start to normalize the relationships between Canada and the U.S. It's in both sides' benefit. But if this is going to be the sticking point, it's not worth fighting for this, because it is a tariff on tech companies the same way Europe did it. And the majority of tech that's used in Canada comes from the U.S. It always has. And so I don't think this is a winning strategy for Carney. But as I say, there's a lot of optimism around him because he is not the idiot king. He's a lot more pragmatic.
Well, let's see if he
He's not the idiot king yet. We don't know. He's probably, based on what we're seeing right now, I mean, he might be worse. What does this mean for you? The Canada-US trade is worth $780 billion annually. From everything from auto, timber, and aluminum. You think that inflation is bad now? Just wait till the U.S. tariff hits everything Canada exports to the United States. And if you're hoping for the Bank of Canada in July to cut, well, if we don't get this trade thing sorted out, they might have to increase interest rates if tariffs hit the entire economy. People aren't even thinking about that. And Canada has zero leverage here. If Ottawa thinks that they could bluff and do these counter tariffs, and that's something I actually heard and I could not believe my eyes, they're gambling with your grocery bill and your job. Let's talk about Mark Carney now. He tried to make a backroom deal with Donald Trump and then turns around and slaps American companies with retroactive tax. Donald Trump saw this as an ambush, and he's coming so hard. This is a FAFO, not taco, FAFO. He's coming, and we got this so-called pragmatist just blew up Canada's biggest trading partner and relationship. This is the look of Mark Carney right now going, oh crap, I just screwed up. So now that we know that our trade relationship and negotiations have completely blown up between Donald Trump and Mark Carney, this CNN interview, which occurred just a few days ago, it aged like milk sitting in the sunshine.
President Trump tends to be transactional and be very personal. And sometimes he thinks, or maybe you know differently. Apparently they say that you're the Trump whisperer of the leaders.
I'm not
and
sure
that you're on texting, relations with him and you're constantly talking.
Look at him smile when he's called the Trump whisper. It's like, oh, I'm so cool. I'm so good.
So, is he still saying he wants to annex Canada?
He's not. He's not. He admires Canada, I think it's fair to say. And
does he admire Canada right now? I don't think so.
Maybe for a period of time coveted Canada, but
you've put that to bed.
Well, look, we're two sovereign nations who are discussing the future of our trade relationships, our defense partnership.
All right, that's enough of that one. Doug Ford has come out today.
We need the federal government to pause the implementation of the digital services tax. The DST is a bipartisan consensus in Washington. They are absolutely furious at us. I talked to Democrats, I talked to Republicans, and they are furious. They're furious with Canada over even considering what they view as an unfair tax on American companies. Putting aside the fact that they'll never support bringing in a new tax, no matter what it is, we cannot put millions of Canadian jobs in our historic economic partnership with the U.S. at risk because of a stubborn refusal to listen to the concerns of our American friends. The federal government needs to pause the implementation of the digital services tax.
We don't need to pause anything. We need to take the digital service tax and torch it. Literally set it on fire. It's gone. I gotta show you this clip. It's gonna upset you a little. Well, it's gonna upset you a lot. Look at the smirk on Mark Carney's face.
Hi, Prime Minister. Mr. Carney, have you spoken to the president today yet, sir?
No, I didn't speak to the president today.
What do you? Any reaction to the news they put on Truth Social today?
We'll continue to conduct these complex negotiations in the best interest of Canadians. It's a negotiation. Ça va continuer.
Will you back down from the DST? Can you just say that in French?
Je viens de te le dire. Il y a des négociations complexes. On va les continuer dans les mieux intérêts des Canadiens et Canadiennes.
Merci.
Does that look like someone that's concerned for Canadians? Is he worried about your job with that smile? And here we have Charlie Angus, completely unhinged about the entire situation.
If you loved us, you would love us for our values. What we're seeing right now is a nation that doesn't believe in equity and inclusion or under the rule of law. Those are our values. That's why our Prime Minister, Carney, is over in Europe talking about our new future as being part of Europe and no longer part of the United States.
Holy crap. You see what's happening with these people on the left? We're no longer partners with the United States. We're partners. We're becoming European. And here's the worst part. Canada didn't have to do any of this. We are moving forwards outside of the pact. Check this out.
I'm not here to defend Trump. I don't even agree with him on tariffs whatsoever, but it doesn't matter what I think. I want to put a bigger picture frame on this. The OECD has been negotiating for over 20 years on base widening and the whole issue of a corporate minimum tax. We are part of those negotiations. In fact, we were one of the originating countries that demanded that the OECD develop a multilateral solution. And they've been going away at it, negotiating it, because it's very challenging, it's very difficult. We've been doing it for over 20 years. They're well down that road of a global minimum tax. Minister Champagne today said, well, you know, yes, I know that this is part of the ongoing discussions in the OECD, but Canada went ahead with that digital service tax in advance of the OECD coming to a solution. In other words, they're still in negotiations at a multilateral level of many, many countries. We went ahead and basically jumped the gun and put this digital service tax in because we weren't willing to wait for the outcome of the OECD negotiations, which many think will produce a treaty eventually, and I'm one of them. So my point is, if you look at it from that point of view, you can see why Trump has reacted the way he has. And one final quick point, Natasha.
Please, yes.
You know, we've gone into these negotiations and said, our own parliament passed a thing saying we're standing foursquare behind supply management. The Quebec government did the same thing. You know, we're not going to bend on digital services tax. We're not going to bend on supply management. We're not going to bend on the broadcast bill. So we're going in and saying we're going to keep all of these protectionisms and tariffs. And by the way, America, you have to open up and take all the tariffs off of us. I'm just putting it the way that they are looking at it. And so that's, you know, if we want a deal, we must get a deal, I believe. We've got to go in and say everything is on the table. That means the Broadcast Act that prohibits, excuse me, I keep saying broadcast, I mean the Telecom Act that keeps out American telecom. The digital service tax has to be on the table. Supply management must be on the table. And for those who say, no, it doesn't, well, then we're a grave risk of not having a deal with the United States, the largest economy in the world that is so essential and necessary for the Canadian economy.
And I'm glad to hear, Ian, that you saw this coming, because I'll be honest, I certainly didn't. Many of the people we've spoken to today did not see this coming. So since you're ahead of the game on so much,
it's because CBC is trash. That's why.
Ian, let me ask you, we are anticipating to get comments from President Donald Trump next hour. Now, they were pre-scheduled and they were not supposed to be about Canadian trade, but I imagine he might have something to say. So how do you think, we know how he posts on social media and then sometimes softens the tone when he's speaking directly with the Prime Minister or whomever he's dealing with. What do you anticipate we might hear from the President next hour?
I think he's going to talk about the unfairness. He talks about how hard Canada is, how difficult it is to deal with Canada. He has been talking about that supply management tariff. I think it's a maximum under certain conditions of 250%. He's been talking about that since 2015. He's been talking about the digital services tax for at least 2 years. So he's going to bring up this litany of complaints that have been mostly listed in the USTR report for a third of a century. Most of these complaints, irritants, have been there through successive presidents since Bill Clinton. So he's going to repeat them, and I think he's going to probably be more blunt at this press conference and say, I'm not coming, but we are not coming back to the table until you put everything on the table, or words to that effect. I think he's going to demand that we put our protectionist policies, our tariffs that we do charge on the table as a prerequisite to returning to negotiations. I think he'll go down that road. He's been Natasha, I'm not here to defend Donald Trump. No. I'm just talking about what he said. He has been very consistent on this. This is not something he woke up this morning and said, gee whiz, I don't like the digital services tax. I don't like supply management. He's been talking about this for as long as I can remember. This is not a surprise. This is not a secret. I was surprised over the last 2 weeks that the negotiations were going forward without any response from Trump about the digital services tax, given that he has publicly, repeatedly criticized it very strongly, not to mention supply management. And here they were negotiating away, which made me very happy, in Washington, and there was no response from Trump. And so I thought, I think the shoe's going to drop sooner or later, and it's going to drop hard. It looks like it fell very hard today, and I don't think this is a, quote, negotiating strategy. I think that he is determined that he is going to ensure that we get rid of those most critical protectionist measures. The digital services tax and supply management, I think, have to be at the top of the list.
All right, Canada, this is where I need to come in. So remember when I said that Donald Trump wanted a liberal government? Because if we had a conservative-led government, I believe that in good faith, they would bring forwards everything would be on the table. We're putting everything on the table. I could be wrong, but I had a feeling that the conservatives would want to make a deal with Donald Trump, where the liberals want to make a deal with Europe and say, screw the US. 76% of all our trade goes to the United States, plus all of the ships and CO2 it will cost for us to ship all our stuff to Europe. When Mark Carney's like, we're trying to get to net zero. Maybe Donald Trump wanted a liberal-led government for for Canada to become the 51st state. And the elbows up crowd walked right into it. I even posted this, and look, it got like 56,000 views. Mark Carney wants to replace our #1 trading partner with 76% of our exports with Europe. Brilliant. Let's ship our lumber, oil, beef across the Atlantic, because nothing screams climate leadership like 10 times the emissions to trade with a collapsing economy on the other side of the planet. And here's the headline of the article from National Post. Carney seems intent on moving Canada at full throttle towards Europe at the expense of our relationship with the United States. This is going to be a wild week. Are we going to hear from Mark Carney this weekend, or do we have to wait for him to think about it? I don't know what there is to think about. We have zero options here. Is he going to come next week and say, yeah, we're going to remove the digital service tax? He probably needs to do a lot more. Or is he going to say, screw the US, we're going to Europe? It's just too much to think about. But I found a video of a car that smashed into a fireworks shop in Florida to end this episode. Just explosive.
Gosh, this car just freaking drove into the fireworks place. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Holy crap.
Oh my gosh.
Crackers and cheese. That's it for today's report. If you like this video, smash that like button. It's free. It costs $0 and it helps grow my channel. It increases the reach. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I make daily videos on information that the mainstream media will not cover. I'll see you on the next report.